Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
We're not from Memphis, but we love it.
Welcome to Memphis Type History, the podcast. Good evening, Caitlin.
Good morning, Rebecca. I feel like at some point we're going to have to stop doing that. Everyone's going to be like, we're so sick of them thinking it's so funny that they're on different times.
Well, it's just, it helps me get the time started, if that makes any sense. And just an observation, I think I sound a little drunk in the morning because I'm so groggy. And I
think you sound like your usual self.
Are you sure? I mean, I think it helps that we had a conversation before this morning, but I usually sound like I'm a little drunk. No, when I listened to the draft, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I sound that way. It was early in the morning, and I do slur a little bit, but I think I'm okay right now because we had a little chit chat before we started recording.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, and I ate half a banana.
Oh, good. Eating is good. Yeah. I had a hamburger and fries before we chatted.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, it was really good. Just a disclaimer. Today, there's mysterious drilling happening illegally somewhere above my head in this apartment building, and I cannot find the perpetrators. So I attempted to go yell at them and make them stop, but I can't find them. So you may hear some strange drilling sounds on and off, but I can't do anything about it. And
it's a mystery.
It's just life happening. So what are you going to tell me about today?
Well, a subject that fascinates me. I'd like to start
80s
off by
movies?
talking about what?
80s movies?
Oh, I do love 80s movies. Although, apparently I blur 80s and 90s together. Well, actually, you would find these in a lot of movies, what I'm about to talk about.
Ooh.
80s and 90s. You know what it is because you saw the calendar.
Oh,
but
stop,
you don't know.
Stop. I'm playing dumb like I'm a listener. I'm in the listener's role. I don't know a thing. I don't know a thing.
Well, good.
What are we talking about?
Well, today we are going to talk about malls.
Malls.
Particularly Memphis malls.
I hate malls.
Oh, well, after this episode, you're going to love them.
I'm going to love these malls, but
Yeah.
I definitely hate malls and normal, everyday malls. The malls here are very, very fancy, very expensive.
In China?
Yeah, Shanghai. I don't know about the rest of China, but in Shanghai.
Okay. That's interesting because my perception of what's happening of malls is what we know of as the shops at Saddle Creek, which is this outdoor community-style place of engagement. Looks very nice. You can get the most fanciest of businesses to enter, like
they're nice, but then if it's like very hot or rainy or very cold, they're not nice. That's the thing.
Yeah,
because you have to go in and out. That's the problem. Otherwise, I love it. If it's a nice day, it's fine.
It's a nice day, and think about it. It's aesthetically more pleasing to see a lineup of stores as opposed to one giant building, right?
Yeah, true.
And
true.
it looks closer to what we would associate with maybe a town square or just a nice plaza. So in that sense, it's kind of nice. You could put a courtyard in the middle of it, or just nice landscaping. And it's not one building. It is a series of aesthetically pleasing businesses. And I think that is more appealing to a bigger audience, I think. That's where our country is most recently leaning towards, are these outdoor strip malls or plazas or malls, essentially. And I get this impression that that's the ideal mall style these days. And so I created this might sound random, but I did create scripts for movie-style trailers. And we're going to listen to one that I think portrays the shops at Saddle Creek as a love story, because this is how I perceive the way people perceive the shops at Saddle Creek. So here we go. Do you want to listen to it?
Yeah.
Okay. This trailer is done by Caitlin's brother.
At a time when the world felt empty, a place where people drove miles to find a Walmart and never say hello to their neighbor, Poe and McElwain had an idea that would ultimately change the nation. What came was an experience like no other. A place where people came together to fall in love, to buy new pants, and drink their first cup of Tivana. This is the true story of a land that was once empty and an idea that turned it into a magical place of joy, love, and laughter. The Shops at Saddle Creek.
So that's trailer one. And this is how I perceive the Shops at Saddle Creek, how people think of the Shops at Saddle Creek. It's like a love story. People are
There's
outside on a
Tivana
beautiful
involved.
day and
Yeah.
getting their fancy outfit for the next weekend and that kind of thing.
Me, I'm getting that free sample from Tivana and moving along.
Yes, and then there's Caitlin's. They're the Caitlins of the world that don't see the Shops at Saddle Creek as a love story. And honestly, I kind of put myself in there too. I don't visit it often, but I do think I like that style a lot better than the mall that we know of.
Yeah, it doesn't smell funny.
Right, so sometimes the malls can get a little musty.
Yeah.
I don't like crowds, and back when I was growing up, that's the place you would go to get Christmas gifts, and it was always so crowded, real noisy because it's so echoey. But more recently, as I've gotten older, I find those malls to be fascinating. Fascinating also because of what's happening to them, at least here in Memphis, and I'm wondering if it's happening throughout the nation, is they're kind of dying. Mm-hmm. Let me just let you know that as a result of this feeling I have about the malls, I went and visited 2 malls, but I'm going to talk about 3 in particular. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Hickory Ridge Mall. Have you been there, Caitlin?
Yeah, that's the one that had the carousel.
Yes, you went there.
That's my Memphis mall.
That was your Memphis mall.
Yep, because my grandparents are in Olive Branch, and so I would come to visit, and that's where Mama and I would go shopping.
Oh, look at that.
And, like, go ride the carousel. I mean, that's our, like, childhood and, like, teen mall. Like, that's where we went.
Yeah, well, let me just let you know, you'll feel delighted to hear that the carousel still stands there and it still runs.
Yeah.
It's a double-decker. It's gorgeous because it doesn't have creepy-looking animals and stuff. They're actually...
It's the best carousel of all time.
It's great. Yeah, I was impressed by this carousel. But it definitely stands out amongst what it's surrounded by. And I don't know when the last time you went to visit it, but it looks completely... I assume it looks completely different.
It's been a long time. Mm-hmm. Long time.
This mall, Hickory Ridge Mall, opened in 1981 with Goldsmiths and Sears, which were 2 hot stores. Do you remember hearing about Goldsmiths when we were working on the book and how that was the big department store of downtown and people still talk about it?
I've shopped at Goldsmiths a lot.
You did?
That was my mama's store.
I never heard of it till I came here.
If we were buying clothing, it was going to be from Goldsmiths. Like, she was not
Sunday
into
best.
all the stores I wanted to be at. Yeah, I wanted to be like up, and I can't even think of the names of all those, but like, you know. Well, I don't know. When I was like a tween, it was like Wet Seal and Delia's.
Wet Seal.
It's like where you wanted to be.
Yes.
Yeah. And she was all about Goldsmiths, which was fantastic. I mean, it was much nicer clothing, and it was a really nice shopping experience. I mean, it was a legit department store, like you think of in like movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that, but it like, you know, was nice.
Mm-hmm. Well, that one later became a Macy's, and I think most Goldsmiths did.
Yeah.
And I like Macy's.
Yeah.
So Dillard's came in 1986.
Yeah.
So that helped them all expand a bit. And 11 years later, I don't know if you remember a renovation that happened. And that was to compete with Wolf Chase Galleria.
I don't know.
They worked their best to keep it so it wouldn't compete with Wolf Chase. But that's life. That's what happens. When we went to go visit, I think there was what would have been Macy's was an incredible pizza, but that was closed down. But yeah, so they had to compete with Wolf Chase. And I only bring up Wolf Chase because I had to stop and think, what is the difference between a mall and a galleria? Do you know?
Oh, I never even thought about that.
You've never thought about that?
No, I just thought it was some fancy name they gave it.
I think most people have a idea of what distinguishes Like, I always thought a Galleria meant there was an ice skating rink inside. And that's obviously wrong, because when I went to visit the Wolf Chase Galleria, I asked, where's the ice skating rink?
Are you serious?
Yes. When I was 2008, I discovered that Gallerias don't all have ice skating rinks. And I asked somebody else recently, and they had a completely different answer. But anyway, would you like to know?
Yeah, I want to know. I thought this was going to turn out to be like a do you know? I don't know either kind of thing. I was about to be kind of frustrated. What's the difference?
I was a little frustrated trying to figure this out, because even when I looked it up in the dictionary, it didn't make too much sense to me. But after reading a little bit into it, Galleria is a glass-enclosed promenade, or promenade, however you prefer to say. And so it houses stores and businesses, but it's really any structure housed under a glass roof.
Okay.
And I'll have you know that the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II sounds pretty cool, right?
Ooh, it sounds very Italian.
It is. It's in Italy, and it's one of the world's oldest shopping malls. And that's possibly the beginning of when the term Galleria became synonymous with the shopping mall. Can you guess how old the concept of the mall is?
Wait, hold on. Is it in Milan?
Yeah.
I've been there.
I believe so. Really?
Yeah,
so you saw
I've been
how
in there.
gorgeous. I'm going to put a picture of it in show notes because it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. If it's what I'm thinking of, it's
It's got a glass roof.
It's amazing.
But
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
an amazing glass roof. Yeah. So at least that feels like you're outdoor, but you have the protection of if there's bad weather. Mm-hmm. Because I looked into this, I discovered that the concept of the mall really started in ancient Rome. And so it's kind of evolved over time in its different areas. Oh, and the Galleria, too, was this Galleria that you went to, that you visited.
Yeah.
That one was designed in 1861, and it was built between 1865 and 1877.
Wow.
I bet it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Back to Hickory Ridge. That was just a sidetrack. And speaking of bad weather, do you know what else hurt the Hickory Ridge Mall besides competition?
No.
A tornado.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Does that sound familiar?
That's right. It's ringing a bell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can ring my bell. It rings a bell, a tornado.
It
happened
does
on
ring a
February
bell.
5th of 2008. That's the month I
Yeah.
moved here.
Oh.
Yeah, in 2008, February 2008. And it hurt the mall entrance, the Sears, and Macy's. And several people were injured, but it didn't kill anybody. There was nobody confirmed dead, so that's good.
Yeah.
So people can feel at ease there. But yeah, so Hickory Ridge, big mall. At its peak, it featured more than 100 stores. And total, this is 855,000 square feet. So as we're talking about how massive these buildings are, that's how big they are. It got bought out after this tornado, by World Overcomers Ministries, which I think is also a church, maybe.
I feel like I've seen a sign that says that somewhere.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay.
But this explains, after I saw this explains why it is the way it is. If you go inside, there are only 11 retail stores. And
Wow.
when I was there, one of those was closing down. So there might only be 10 or less.
Wow.
And the rest is filled with, there's 12 community service offices. And it looks like, I remember seeing like tax help places. And it looks like maybe a church meets there. You could rent out space for business meetings, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then there's also like a teacher kid ballet, ballet kids course class is there.
Oh.
And they still have a food court at this, and they call it a town center. So it's not really, it's a mall, but that kind of gives you an idea of what it's become. So it's a lot more community service geared. And because of that, there's not much traffic at all.
Yeah.
So it was me and my family went there, and we were the only ones on that carousel. And
Wait, they're running it? They're still running the carousel?
they're still running it, yeah.
Wow.
That was a highlight of the mall. But I do want to give a little shout out to a guy who just wrote a blog post about the Hickory Ridge Mall, which I'll include on our show notes. His name's Michael Butler, and his blog post is called 1901. And you could tell he, like you, Caitlin, grew up. That was his mall that he went to.
Yeah.
He loved
that
the
was my
carousel.
mall. Yeah.
So I wanted to point him out because his pictures are really good. Even though I'll post some photography on our show notes, I wanted to include his link because he's got some real nice photos there. And I liked he made a quote about the food court reminding him of a scene from Saved by the Bell.
Yes.
Does that ring any bells, Caitlin? That
So
food
many
court,
bells.
Saved by the Bell.
Do you know what? I am racking my brain trying to remember what the food court was like in that mall. And that's just not, we must have never really eaten there. Because when I think of Hickory Ridge, I think of the carousel, I think of the bookstore, I think of like the Goldsmiths. And I just think of like walking around in it and how big it was and how big it felt. But I cannot picture the food court in my head at all.
Well, I'm excited for you to look at these pictures and bring back your memories.
Yeah.
I will say something that I did love is when I first walked in the entrance, there's this sandwich board sign that says, Bluff City Crab, now open. And I'd see another sign randomly that's like, Bluff City Crab here. I considered, let's go eat there because, I'm curious what this Bluff City Crab's about. And I go into the food court, again, another sign. It's like, Bluff City Crab here. Caitlin, there is no Bluff City Crab anywhere. I couldn't find it.
What?
Yeah, it's a mystery.
It fell in the black hole of Hickory Ridge Mall.
Yes. I hope I'm saying it right. I didn't take a picture. Maybe I did take a picture of the sign. Whatever. I just saw crab, and it looked like that was the big feature of the mall. Obviously, it's not because I couldn't find it.
So funny. Oh, my goodness.
So that's the Hickory Ridge Mall. So then I visited another mall.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to guess which sad mall that could have been?
Well, Mall of Memphis is a sad mall.
Yes.
And it's empty. Well, it's gone.
It's gone, so I didn't visit that one.
Yeah. Did you visit? You could have visited the site.
The memorial.
What other mall?
I thought of it because I've seen people post pictures of it just looking so empty.
I only really know because Hickory Ridge was our mall, but we had gone to Mall of Memphis several times as kids to ice skate, but nothing else. Only ice skate.
Okay.
I only remember one time being allowed to walk around. And then we switched to Oak Court.
Okay.
Because stores started closing at Hickory Ridge, and I have no idea what mall then.
Raleigh Springs.
Oh, I don't know anything about this.
Okay, I don't either. Because guess what?
Doesn't exist.
I'm sorry, I keep making you guess stuff.
What?
I have no idea.
I literally don't know anything about it. It's closed.
It closed.
It's empty.
It closed.
Okay.
I had never heard of malls closing until we moved to Memphis. And it closed, sadly, just last November. So I missed it by however long, months. And so it's all gated up. I took some pictures of the outside of it just to show. And then I looked up what was the history of this mall. Because I got to tell you, the neighborhood that this mall is around, I just assumed it must be kind of shut down a bit. But the neighborhoods look amazing. The houses are nice, quiet, peaceful. There's no vacancy hardly anywhere. So it seemed weird that a neighborhood couldn't support a mall in walking distance to them.
Not into shopping.
Yeah, I think so. But I think this is also the problem with the competition, right?
Ah, okay. That wolf chase. It's Wolf Chase's fault.
That wolf
all
chase.
This, everything. All
Oh,
of
it was more than just wolf chase, let me tell you.
What else can... Okay.
It closed down November. It had opened in 1971, which made it the second shopping mall of Memphis. And the first one was Southland Mall in Whitehaven. That one was built in 1966, and I think it's still open. That one's in Whitehaven. So this is the second one. You can guess. Raleigh Springs had a Sears and a JCPenney and a Dillard's and a movie theater. Ooh. Yeah, which I didn't even know malls had movie theaters in them back in the 70s, but apparently it did.
I didn't know malls had movie theaters in them until I went to Memphis to that Peabody Place one, although I never saw a movie there. I was like,
oh, you
malls
should
movie
have.
Theaters?
It was the best one.
I was never there at a time when it would make sense to see a movie because I didn't live there. I lived in Oxford.
Further out. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so Raleigh Springs had lost a lot of its stores, mostly because Hickory Ridge Mall had opened. So that was a competing mall. And then the Mall of Memphis, which is what you kind of briefed on a little bit. Mm-hmm. And Hickory Ridge had also struggled to the Mall of Memphis as well. So this is also what fascinates me about malls, is this whole competition thing.
Yeah.
And again, you tell me if this is just in Memphis or in other places, because I feel like I hadn't seen this before, that we have this nice neighborhood, opens the mall, People flock to it, love it. And then it's like the next nice city or suburb opens up, and it's not that far, but they decide they need to have a mall to keep that suburb so nice and pretty. And then that ends up hurting the neighborhood before it, right? So it ends up hurting a mall.
Yeah.
So much so that it would eventually end up closing down. I don't know if malls... I think I've thought malls could close down, but I've never seen malls close down before. And just think, it's this huge, massive building with thousands of parking lots. So it's a bunch of space. And then it's just going to be left there empty because our concept of malls have changed. And so that's it. Which brings me to the Mall of Memphis. Tell us what you remember about the Mall of Memphis, Caitlin.
So, Mall of Memphis was the place I wanted to go all the time as a kid when we were up with our grandparents in the Memphis area because they had the ice skating rink, and that's something that I never really got to do otherwise because I grew up in Mississippi and we don't have ice ponds. So, I loved being able to go there to ice skate, but I don't think we went very often, like maybe at most, maybe like a handful of times. I'm not really sure. My perception was that the only thing in it basically was the ice rink because like maybe the one time I was allowed to walk around, all of the stores were closed and then there were like a few that were open, but the only one I actually remember was a knife store.
Knife?
Yeah, not like cooking knives either. Like gun show knives.
Could you get a machete?
I don't know. It was like style knives, like have your personal knife store. I just remember the window display and then like a bunch of closed stores. Like
there were hundreds of stores in this spot and you remember the knife store.
Well, because I'd never been in a mall that had a knife store before. And of course, I had heard of like how dangerous this Mall of Memphis was when we were going to go ice skating anyway. So I'm like, there's a knife store in the Danger Mall. And I'm kind of like, as a kid, I'm like, no wonder they're selling knives in here.
Yes. These are the pretty knives that the robbers take and then slash people's ankles with in the parking lots.
Oh, I didn't even... Okay, that's deeper than I knew as like
I don't know.
8-year-old.
I just said that. Sorry.
That's really intense.
I don't know if that happened. Sorry. I just said it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you have a criminal mind.
Well, I think I read somewhere that was a rumor. I hope it didn't just come out of my mind.
Disgusting.
But it could have.
I remember also that you could observe the skating rink from the second floor of the mall. Oh. So you could go up and like look down below, which was very cool. But I loved going there to ice skate. I thought it was the funnest thing. But then it closed. It was all gone.
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you, when I moved here and heard about the Mall of Memphis, people kept referring to it as the Mall of Murder, right?
Yeah.
And so there were plenty of people that had this negative perception of it. And so that led me to create a script for the Mall of Memphis as a horror movie because that's how I see it as.
What once stood wide and welcoming. A home to happy kids skating on the ice chalet. Mothers congregating for companionship and activity. Men could buy and look at whatever they wanted. The world was safe here. That was until the gates of hell opened and sin consumed all that was good. Peace becomes war. War becomes hate. And skating on ice turns into skating on blood. Satan has one goal, and it's to consume shoppers for eternity. Can anyone escape the chopping block? Or will all fall victim to the flames of greed? The Mall of Murder. Shopping for souls.
Okay. That's what I feel like the perception of the Mall of Memphis was to people here. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, that's a good place of memories. It seems like the Mall of Memphis was, it's 885,627 square feet of magical memory production, right? When I looked at the research, I was like, no. there are people that bonded with this mall.
Yeah.
Who loved what was inside of it, loved going to the skating rink. It was huge, beautiful, the newest upcoming place to go to. And it closed down, as you know.
Yeah.
It was the only public ice rink in Memphis. That mall had the only ice skating rink. And come late 80s, early 90s, things happened, okay? There were several deadly shootings and a collection of robberies occurred on or near the parking lots. Just those right there kind of gave the mall a bad rep. But more importantly, there is a research done by Rhodes College back in 2016. Let me make sure I got that year right. Sorry. Rhodes College did a study in 2006 showing that it was the media's impact of giving the mall this nickname that gave it the bad rep. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they actually turned it into the Mall of Murder.
Because of, so essentially what they discovered is because of this nickname, that's really what killed the mall, is having this nickname. And the media's portrayal of this crime, when the reality is when they did their research, Oak Court had a higher violent crime rate. Oak Court Mall, which was the newest mall, had a higher violent crime rate than Mall of Memphis did.
And that was the one that, like, you're supposed to go to like, be safe, was Oak Court.
Correct.
It was supposed to be, like, the nice mall that's safe or whatever.
The area that it was in had the highest income of people. But it did have the most crime. And Hickory Ridge had the highest, above Mall of Memphis, had the higher property crime.
Wow.
Of that place, higher than Mall of Memphis. So it wasn't, Mall of Memphis did not have as much crime as these other malls, surrounding malls, but the perception of it is what kind of killed it.
So the media killed my childhood fun.
Media killed the childhood fun. Yes, it did.
Hey, everyone. PSA, facts matter.
Yes. We'll include those two, but I'm going to include it on the show notes as well so people can see it. There were plans to give this mall a facelift and change the name to Memphis Park Galleria. But obviously that did not happen.
Wait, does it have a glass wall? I mean, a glass ceiling? Can it be a galleria?
Yeah.
I do remember it being very bright, but I don't know if it was the ceiling or the reflection of the ice, like making it bright.
I bet it did. Here's what I try to remember. And I was actually at the Wolf Chase Galleria yesterday watching a movie. I don't know that there's glass in that one, and that's called a galleria. There are little windows where the carousel is. But, I mean, nowadays, that's part of it. A mall can technically call themselves a galleria because people kind of associate the two as one.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's what I find fascinating about malls that I wanted to talk about and have a podcast on them. Do you have any questions or insight?
I think I'd like to start calling the Mall of Memphis, instead of Mall of Murder, I want to call it Mall of Magic. And I request that all of our listeners, please now,
from this point on,
in your everyday conversations, call it Mall of Magic from now on. Let's rewrite history to be more accurate.
Should I rewrite the trailer to make that one a past love story now?
No, I really...
And call it the Mall of Magic?
I really like the visual of hell opening up, so I think I actually will keep that. But
the Mall of Murder.
Yeah, maybe for our Patreon subscribers, maybe our Patreon subscribers could get a bonus trailer, an alternate ending for the Mall of Magic.
We should have people read the script and submit it.
Ooh.
Read our scripts.
Through SpeakPipe.
Which
is on our website. And you can leave us your memories with your voice on SpeakPipe.
Yes. Trailer fashion.
Any kind of fashion.
Any kind. We'll take it all. Mall of Magic or Mall of Murder. Hickory Ridge Mall, Raleigh Springs Mall.
Yeah.
Any memories you have. People bond with their malls is what I've discovered.
Peabody Place Mall, send some stories.
Mm-hmm.
What's the coolest thing you've ever bought in a mall?
A wet seal outfit. I'm just kidding. I just said that because as a kid, I didn't really like malls that much because I didn't like crowds and I didn't talk much. But I did like Spencer's.
You would.
A lot. Why? What does that mean?
Spencer's was weird. That is a weird store.
I saw one recently at a mall in Louisiana.
Yeah, I think they still exist.
I was kind of excited about it. Yeah.
Hot Topic, that's a mall store. That's memorable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're younger than me, so Hot Topics, you're age appropriate.
I mean, I never shopped there. It wasn't my thing, but I do remember it. It's like, wow, there's a lot of pink and black in there.
In my time, you could go to a toy store in a mall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, plenty
There's
of toys.
KB Toys.
So Greenville, Mississippi, where I grew up, has a mall. I think they still have a mall, although there are very few stores in it, I believe. But it's the only mall for a while. I guess next options are Memphis and Jackson, maybe? I don't know. So
That's what's keeping it alive.
I know, maybe it's just more like you don't close malls, except in Raleigh. I don't know. I don't ever go back there, so I'm not really sure what the story is. But there's a mall, and there's KB Toys, which was...
It still exists.
Great for us as a kid. No, this is when I was a kid. I don't know if it still exists. Great for us as a kid.
Okay.
Terrible for my parents, I'm sure. And a bookstore, which was also terrible, because I would buy all the books. Oh, man.
So we didn't hear any drilling, which is good.
I know. It did stop. There was some hammering, but probably not... I saw it pick up a little bit, but it's not as intense as that drilling was. It might come back. It's been on and off all day. All right, are we going to wrap this up? Are we done with malls?
Yes. Oh, yes. Thanks for listening to my tangent on fascinating things about malls. I don't know how to communicate poetically. This is Memphis Type History, the podcast.
Show notes are at...
Oh, yeah.
You're signing off a little prematurely. Hold on. Show notes. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Show notes for this episode, memphistypehistory.com/malls. Leave us your own mall stories and memories via SpeakPipe. It's on our website. Leave us a message. We'll play it if we like it. And Patreon, head over to patreon.com/memphistypehistory. Throw us some money to keep going, and we will reward you with things.
Yeah.
And that's all cool stuff. So go over there, either from the goodness of your hearts or because you want a t-shirt. We don't really care which way that goes. And those are all the messages, I think. So now, take it away.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Memphis Malls. You've been listening to Memphis Type History, the podcast.
We like your type.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Memphis Type History, the podcast. It would mean so much to us if you head over to iTunes and give us a rating and review. Be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode.
Want to be part of Memphis Type History and get behind-the-scenes content, merch, and more? Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Memphis Type History. That's Patreon, spelled patreon.com/Memphis Type History.
Find more Memphis Type History on our blog at memphistypehistory.com, on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest as Memphis Type History, and on Twitter at Memphis Type.